Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to discuss the meaning and use of the concept marginal in economics. And this is really video 1, level 1 treatment of this topic. I'm not going to refer to any calculus, there'll be no complex market diagrams or anything like that, so no prior knowledge. It's really a video for beginners. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because new economics students do often struggle with the use of this concept. And I think that that's pretty natural. We really don't use this concept a lot in everyday life, and how we use it in economics can be a little bit different from some of these common usages anyway. And really, in economics, when we use the concept marginal, we mean the concept in the sense of the next or the additional. So to give a few non-economics examples of this, we can imagine a classroom with a few students and a teacher in it. Let's say a new student enters the room. This would be the marginal student, so the next or additional student walking into the room. We can imagine another scenario. Let's say I'm shopping and I'm buying apples. I have 3 apples in my basket. I'm deciding on the 4th apple. I put it in my basket. That's the marginal 4th apple that I plan to purchase. What if I'm a casual employee and my boss calls me up and says, hey, can you come in on Saturday? Your coworker can't do their shift. Do you want another shift? Well, this additional shift would be the next or marginal shift that I take on or don't. We might think about the marginal or additional litre of petrol in your fuel tank as you're filling up. If you go for a run, you might think about the next mile, so the marginal mile that you're about to run. So hopefully you get the drift. This is the sense of marginal that is employed in economics, the next or additional. We're right at the edge. All right, well, what does this have to do with economics at all? Well, actually, it's because economists are really concerned with modeling the choices of economic agents. We want to understand how a person chooses to spend their money or their time, how much a firm chooses to produce, how a firm decides to set its price, how governments choose to design their taxation and welfare systems, etc., etc. And in the background of this is the really important and fundamental problem in economics of the scarcity of our resources. So we're interested in the choices that economic agents make because we want to understand how our scarce resources are allocated. And in general, for economists, when we think about modeling the choices of our economic agents, we're going to assume that our agents are rational, that they maximize what's good for them and minimize what's bad for them, that they're going to do the best that they can given the resources that they have. And this amounts to essentially our economic agents weighing up the costs and benefits associated with an action. And specifically, we only say yes to an action if the benefits of doing that action outweigh or are equal to the costs associated with them. And actually, we go a little bit further than this. In order to truly do our best, in order to truly optimize, our agents are going to think about this rule at the margin. So an actor will say yes to doing something if the marginal benefit associated with that act is greater than or equal to the marginal cost associated with doing that same action. So to give an example, let's consider a consumer who is deciding how many cups of coffee to consume. And so I'm listing here each marginal cup they can consider. So we'll say the first cup of coffee, the second cup of coffee, the third, and the fourth. And now let's say that the price of each cup of coffee is equal to $4. So every time our consumer buys a coffee, it costs them $4. And that actually means that $4 is the marginal cost of each successive cup of coffee. Now let's say that the marginal benefit that the consumer gets from their cups of coffee, if we were to measure that benefit in monetary terms, well, let's say for the first cup of coffee, that benefit is equal to 10. For the second, it's equal to 6. For the third, it's equal to 5. And the fourth, it's equal to 3. Now it's worth saying here that this benefit schedule exhibits what we call diminishing marginal benefit of consumption, because you can see for our consumer, their benefit that they associate with the consumption of each marginal unit decreases as they consume more. And this diminishing marginal benefit actually makes a lot of sense for a lot of products, especially probably for coffee. The more cups of coffee that we have, the less benefit that we get for each marginal cup. And so economists would say that, yes, our consumer will consume the first marginal cup because the marginal benefit is definitely greater than the marginal cost. Yes, they will consume the second because again, the marginal benefit, that's 6, is greater than the marginal cost, 4. And yes, the third as well, since 5 is greater than 4 too. But our consumer will definitely not purchase this 4th cup of coffee because the marginal benefit is not greater than the marginal cost of consumption. They only get $3 worth of benefit, and it would cost them $4 for that cup of coffee. So according to our model here, our consumer will consume 3 cups of coffee. And actually, if we make this example a little bit more complex, or rather we allow for more complex mathematics to describe our behavior, and we allow for our good to be treated as a continuous variable. So we're not going to think about discrete cups of coffee anymore, but we think about a continuum of possible quantities of cups of coffee. So we'll represent it on an axis, which increases as we go from left to right. And we have another vertical axis, and that axis will measure the marginal benefit of consumption. Well, then we can put in a marginal benefit line, which tells us about the marginal benefit associated with consuming each marginal cup. And this will be downward sloping due to diminishing marginal benefit. As the number of cups of coffee increases, the marginal benefit associated with each cup gets lower and lower. Now, the price of each cup of coffee is still 4, so it's constant. It doesn't change as the quantity of cups of coffee changes. So it's just a straight line at 4. And actually, in this case, we're going to say that the best that our consumer can do, so the optimal number of cups, is to consume right up until marginal benefit is equal to the price, or to say this another way, up until where marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost. Now, the reason why this is optimal is because this decision will exhaust completely all of our levels of consumption for where the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost. And it will make sure that the consumer never consumes where our marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit. So when we define our variables to be continuous like this, as we most often do when we're doing higher levels of economics, it's really at the equality of our marginal benefit and marginal cost comparison that our economic agent is doing the best that they can. That's where they are optimizing. And so what you will find then is that in so many decision rules that you'll come across in our models in economics, not all of them, but a lot of them, in these models, the optimal decision is framed in terms of marginal thinking, and the optimal is at the equality. So just to give you another example, we model our profit maximizing firms as producing up until marginal revenue, MR. That's the additional revenue that the firm gets from producing an additional marginal unit. It's like the firm's marginal benefit, where that is equal to the marginal cost of production. To give another example, in our model of consumption under constraint, where our consumers choose bundles of goods subject to a budget constraint, we model our consumer as consuming up until the marginal utility per dollar spent on good 1 is equal to the marginal utility per dollar spent of good 2. And actually, the longer that you do economics, the more that you will start to think at the margin, so to speak, especially when we're thinking about the consequences of changes in the market, for instance, of different government interventions, of price rises, income changes. We're evaluating these sort of changes in terms of what they do to the incentives of our agents at the margin. So that's it for this introductory video on the use of the concept of marginal in economics. Now, there is a lot more to say here, like how to represent marginal values mathematically, how our concept of marginal relates to the slope of a function, and also to the use of derivatives. So you can have a look at my channel, or I will post any related videos in the description below if you're interested in more on this stuff. Otherwise, I hope that helped. If it did, please like and subscribe. You can also visit my website at www.econhelp.com.au for more resources to help you study economics. Thank you so much for watching my stuff. Have a good one, everyone.